Welcome to another episode of the Improv podcast. My guest today is Greta Murmaite from Lithuania. So you're a violin player.
Yeah, I am. Hi, everyone. I started playing violin just like any classical musician since I was 6-year-old. Since then, I embarked on a journey on classical training, so I played most of the time classical repertoire.
And so do you perform?
Yeah, I do. Lately, quite a lot, but the range of genres I perform expanded crazy. Now I perform, of course, classical music because it's something I always have done and I really love. But now I also perform indie, folk, jazz. Most of the stuff that I do now is based on improvisation. So it is completely different side of journey that I'm on. Most of the stuff that I will do actually will be in festivals. So we will be playing with band Psychoacoustic Goat. So it's me and bass guitarist Marcus, and we will be playing in Glastonbury, Boomtown, Small Worlds. So if people want to hear that, they can join. As well, in terms of classical repertoire, we'll be having a performance in St. James Priory, 28th of June, and I will be playing the Lark's Ending.
So I'm going to play you a piece of music.
Uh-huh.
And it's completely improvised, so I haven't thought about it at all. I haven't planned it in any way. I'd like you to tell me what it makes you think of. So that's anything that comes into your mind, thoughts, emotions, ideas, but don't overthink it too much.
That was really beautiful. I caught myself in the present moment thinking so many things. But this actually evoked quite a few visuals. So because of the classical training, I went to boarding school. Very often, even as a kid, as like 11-year-old, 13-year-old, you wake up and first thing you do, you're not necessarily going to have mathematics or biology in your school. Sometimes you have piano or like a gap, so you go and practice. What I found that when you start playing, it reminded me of Chopin and like, or Schumann, that kind of like romantic period. And it was quite a repertoire that I was doing at the time in the boarding school. And I just remember this, it was a cloudy day. I remember window, grand piano, literally just being in that space, just being there. And as you play and introduce these like F sharp, I think that was the F sharp that was like a bit dissonant, right? I was thinking to myself, classical musicians, they actually use these things to evoke something within you, like some kind of like, oh, what's the sound in the context? But it's all about resolution, how you resolve it. And same with that experience that I had as in like being in that very space of piano class. At that time, maybe it was gloomy experience for me to remember, but now I choose how I define it. Is it going to be positive memory or experience that I have in my head, or negative? And then you went to the major, so I think that you led me to the positive outcome.
I couldn't work out what key I was supposed to be in, but that kind of added to it. So I was aiming for this more harmonious kind of sound, but it just didn't happen. I just went with it. I went with the dissonance.
It all happened so gradually, the way you led everything musically. It all was so fluid. And it's funny that you picked such a vibe for the first improvisation because literally yesterday I was trying to create some arrangements for strings for a quite melancholic piano background. I find it funny that yesterday I was doing quite a similar thing that you just now brought it up. And I was writing literally strings like very orchestral, string quartet kind of type thing. So it's very funny.
So would you like to play something?
Solo?
How about we take this idea of nostalgia that was brought up for you in the first piece I played when I asked you, what does this make you think of?
Let's do that.
So nostalgia.
It's not negative or positive. There is this room and I'm there. Piano is there. And I'm supposed to be practicing, but I didn't see myself doing that. I said myself being in the room though. And it's just being. It's just existent, really. That is a bit nostalgic.
Is there an emotional quality to it?
That's the thing. The existence, as like you just are, as probably peace comes with it. Because I'm just there attached to nothing.
So this is Greta's version of attached to nothing. Nice. I love the way you use those doubled notes.
So you play basically the same note on two strings, and you can play with microtonal aspects of it to create a certain sensation. So in this case, you can create loads of discomfort. And as difficult as it is to be in tune with violin, I sometimes like the fact that we not necessarily always are in tune. Because with modern classical music, Schoenberg, that kind of period, we have so many of that kind of stuff. And it was so popular because it was shocking for people. After this, so it was a big shift. I used to find it amazing. To be fair, the composition I probably would recommend listening. It's Penderecki. He wrote the kind of piece in memoriam for Hiroshima's victims. And I think it's called Rhapsody for Victims of Hiroshima. Basically, it's a moment of dropping that bomb on Hiroshima and the way he creates that sensation of something's in the air, something's like gonna happen. And they used so much dissonance, but on the orchestral level. So I find these kind of like unisons. This is where it comes from, Penderecki.
Because you can't do that on the piano. It's really hard.
Well, what about when keyboards have wheel, but it tunes everything, right?
Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't tune
So
one note against the other.
So you technically need two pianos for that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh no.
I'd like you to tell me a story of some kind. What I'm going to do is break the story down into sections and then improvise a soundtrack to the story.
This is my first time on the bike. It didn't go well. I'm not good with bicycles. I fall for no reason whatsoever. So my first time with bicycle was I was maybe 6 or so. My dad took upon the role to teach me to ride the bike. And you know those wheels, the small wheels they attach at the back? So I had that. My bike looked like BMX wannabe. It looks like BMX, but it's not. And it's way bigger and taller and everything. My dad trained me for a bit to ride with these wheels. And there was a day when he's like, okay, you're quite good with it. Now we will take it away and we will try to do it at the top of the hill. He explained me everything, how I need to go down the hill, but he forgot to mention how to stop the bicycle. I started going down, and as a kid, everything seems so big and fast and crazy. So, in my perception, I'm going to the enormous speed that is so difficult to control. And all I can do is just shout, my dad, how do I stop? And he's trying to run towards me and catch me. And I went straight to the bush. And the funny bit, the bush had spikes. My brother, older brother, with his friends were there to perceive me. So they had a very great laugh. Of course, me as a kid, I cried. But everyone used to kind of jokingly remind me that story of, do you remember, Greta? Your first time with bicycle? And everyone was there to perceive me. It was really funny. But of course, I learned afterwards. So going into very spiky bush, full power in, because your dad forgot to mention how to stop the bike. That's it.
And so did you feel a sense of excitement and then which turned to fear?
Yeah, it was everything.
So I'm going to think about this sense of for excitement to fear, which is quite an interesting musical transition.
Because it's very dynamic.
Yeah. When you started going down the hill, you thought, oh, this is probably quite fun. Yeah, it's just hanging out. And then I don't actually know how this thing works. It's all getting a bit wobbly and it's hurtling down. Oh, shit.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And then the spikes. I'll see if I can get the spikes at the end. It could be interesting.
In my head, when I was thinking about spikes, I was hearing staccato. So technically, if you would have kept going your left hand at lower frequencies, going to the same kind of like arpeggio, but included right hand as a staccato, that could have been the end journey. Like going down as like I hit the bush was really great. And I think the staccato boom, 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 could like set it up for here.
All right, just the end. I'll see if I can improve on that. Right, going in from the point where you start to lose control.
That was great. That definitely felt really spiky. It did remind me of it.
It's at that point because I'm also losing control. By the time I get to the end, I haven't even thought about this. I haven't practiced it. I'm like, what? All I'm going by is this sense of rhythm by the end. It's just rhythmic, spiky ideas. Because at that point, it's too fast to think about a bit of melody. So what we could do now is take the memory of your bike ride and both improvise a soundtrack to it. I went from the emotion of having a good time, right? This is fun. And then now it's a bit wobbly. And then it's this descent into chaos. So it goes from fun to fear, basically. Okay. But there's a bit of a changeover. All right, let's just try this then, shall we? I guess I'll just play along. So this is the bike ride by Greta and Luke improvised piece.
With your style of playing, it does evoke the classical improvisation in me, like more contemporary classical, rather than what I do is like, and this is like just different vibe, and I love it so much. It's actually more representative of my roots, my kind of like origins of music.
So do you have another story that we can both improvise a soundtrack to then?
Okay, I'm thinking of memory. It's not even a story, it's more of an experience. The place that I'm originally from, it's a small town in Lithuania, in the east side of it. I grew up in a farm, so I was exposed to big fields, greens of nature, of plants, of forests, of lakes and stuff. In the farm that we lived with my family, there is this place. It's like a sauna house. There is like beautiful place to sit that you can literally watch sunset in the horizon. You can see forest. It's like a layers of forest. Very young forest at first. Then there are older trees that are taller, and really old trees that are really tall, and you can see that in the horizon like steps. Probably the most peaceful and the most beautiful moments I have had there when I was just sitting there and seeing sunset. This very view that changed together with me when I was growing. These trees were growing and I was growing with them, and I was there consciously perceiving them changing. So I guess this is literally at the top of my head, is that just experience of changing and growing with trees within this very countryside fields in front of you. There are no cars. There is nothing. You're just there. You are on your own. You're nature, and all you can hear is just like literally birds.
So you get the impression that the trees are changing with you.
As I'm growing older, they're growing older too, and we're growing together.
So there's a sense of kind of connection there.
Yes.
So we're going to go for this idea of growth and connection. You're growing with the trees, you're evolving with the trees.
I like that.
And feel free to flow in some like folky influences and that kind of sound.
there is some harmonic change that you've done that creates this like kind of almost sustained feeling, but then you add one note or so and it's like a sunshine out there. It's just the result kind of like major.
It's like a flip from major to minor. It's like C major, then E flat major, then to F6.
Ooh, okay.
And I think then A flat.
Ooh, I see. Oh, that's brilliant. And you always land in C major. How long did it take you to be this fluid in changing key to key? Because it's a challenge, as well as like quite exciting thing to do when you know how to do it.
I didn't really think about the key that much. You just get that sense of intuition.
This is the thing that I think that we as a musicians, classical musicians, missed out on. We lost the skill of intuition in playing because we were taught to play in a certain way. And I guess now I'm here learning to listen to the intuition again, because if I listen to what you do, I can't feel where to go and feel what is happening. But now when I observe, the analytical part of me is like, why does this happen this way and that way?
Yeah. And then sometimes I'll bring in like that analytical part, especially if I'm stuck. Like, okay, I need C sharp major now. It's like the theory is really useful. When I'm in this mode, I try not to think about it too much. Because if I start thinking about that, then it can really start to get a bit janky. And it doesn't always work. That's what's nice about this process. It's not always going to work. I think that's a really nice thing when you're playing, when you're improvising, and you play something that doesn't work, to have the ability to make it work somehow, because you realize that everything is relative.
So it's probably the matter of us sticking with the problem long enough to not define it as a problem, but a pathway that was not yet explored.
So what did you get out of this podcast?
First of all, the idea of creating in a moment without actually overthinking the outcome. When we want to write a track or a song or anything, a classical piece, we always come up with this, okay, so I want this to sound like this and this to be this. And sometimes these directions that we put prior to actually doing the action can limit us and our outcome. Maybe we can actually just sit down and just play and see where that goes.
So you can often overthink things.
I think it comes also from classical training, because you learn to interpret music first. You learn other people's stuff. Maybe only when you become a student, they try to teach you like, okay, so how do you want to play this piece? Because most of the time it's like, teacher, so in that section be loud, in that section be quiet, and this is a bit more this and that. They arrange it. So that's why it's called performance art, because you are a performer. You can't create the experience that you give to people. I think that I'm leaning now with improvisation and that calm present life idea that the most impactful and the most touching performances are the ones when they are the most real and the least planned. So that's why I take the value, the musical or artistic value of being present and improvising.
So thank you very much for being on the podcast. Where can people check out your music?
I probably would invite to my Instagram, because that's where I post most of my music right now. Greta 0 O. I don't know why I call myself right now.
If you're interested, you can check Greta out on Instagram at Greta 0 O. Join us again next time for another episode of ImproPod. Thanks for listening.